First contact. Dr. Elena Reyes stared out the viewport of the U.S. Emissary, Earth's first purpose-built diplomatic vessel. The star-designated HD 900 and 85,632 burned bright against the void, its golden light spilling across her olive skin. After 3 years in deep space, they had finally arrived at the coordinates where the alien signal originated. Dr. Reyes, Admiral Cho requests your presence on the bridge, announced the ship's eye in its perpetually calm voice. Elena straightened her uniform jacket, smoothing out the emblem of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. At 37, she was the youngest xenolinguistic specialist ever appointed to a first contact mission. Her specialty in nonverbal and non-human communication patterns had earned her this position, though many still questioned whether someone so young deserved such responsibility. Sensors are picking up movement within the system, Admiral Cho said as Elena entered the bridge. The Admiral's weathered face remained impassive, but Elena could read the tension in her stance. They've detected us. The main display showed a fleet of sleek, crystalline vessels emerging from behind the system's fourth planet. Unlike human ships with their utilitarian design, these vessels resembled elaborate geometric sculptures, refracting light in hypnotic patterns. Are they broadcasting? Elena asked, moving to her station. Nothing on standard frequencies, replied Communications Officer Park. But we're detecting unusual light patterns. Could be some form of visual communication. Elena activated her specialized equipment. Send a standard greeting package on all channels. I'll analyze the light patterns. Hours passed as Elena and her team processed the aliens' communications. The crystalline ships had taken formation around the emissary, but maintained a respectful distance. They're using light not just as a carrier wave, but as the communication itself, Elena finally announced. The patterns, frequencies, and polarizations, they're all part of the message. Their biology must be fundamentally different from ours. Admiral Cho nodded. Can we communicate back? We'll need to reprogram our external lights. I'm working on a basic translation matrix. 3 days later, Elena had established rudimentary communication with the aliens, who called themselves the Novans. Their biology was silicon-based, with photosensitive organs that perceived light in ways humans could barely comprehend. They communicated primarily through light emissions from specialized organs, making verbal communication impossible for them. The first diplomatic meeting was arranged in a specially designed chamber aboard the emissary. Elena had worked tirelessly to prepare the human delegation, but cultural misunderstandings were inevitable. Remember, she briefed Admiral Cho and the diplomatic team. Minimize hand gestures. The Novans interpret rapid movement as aggression. When the Novan delegates arrived, their translucent bodies pulsed with internal light that shifted in complex patterns. They resembled humanoid figures crafted from living crystal, each standing nearly 7 feet tall. Admiral Cho stepped forward and raised her hand in greeting, a gesture Elena had specifically warned against. Immediately, the leading Novan flashed a pattern of sharp red light. The other Novans backed away, their bodies emitting warning patterns. Don't move, Elena commanded the human delegation. She quickly adjusted the room's lighting system, projecting a soothing blue-green pattern that she hoped would communicate peaceful intentions. The Novans paused, their light patterns shifting to something less intense. The lead Novan approached Elena slowly, its body now emitting a curious amber glow. They recognize you're trying to speak their language, observed Science Officer Takeda. Elena nodded, continuing her light communication. Through painstaking exchanges, she learned that the Novan leader was named Lumina, though this was Elena's approximation of a name that was actually a specific light wavelength pattern. The initial misunderstanding was resolved, but it highlighted the immense challenges of cross-species communication. Over the following weeks, Elena immersed herself in understanding Novan culture. She discovered their society organized around light-sharing communal structures. Their technology, advanced far beyond Earth's, harnessed the properties of light in ways humans had never imagined. Their entire civilization is built on manipulating photons, she explained to Admiral Cho. What we consider experimental quantum technology, they've mastered centuries ago. The diplomatic mission progressed cautiously but productively. Elena developed a more sophisticated translation system, allowing for complex discussions. The Novans, initially wary, grew increasingly interested in human culture and biology. 6 months into the mission, a breakthrough occurred. The Novans invited the human delegation to visit their homeworld Lux Prima. Such an invitation was unprecedented in Earth's limited extraterrestrial diplomatic history. This is what we've been working toward, Elena told the Admiral. But there's something else. They've mentioned other species, at least 3 spacefaring civilizations they've had contact with. We're not alone out here, Admiral. There's an entire interstellar community we're just discovering. As the emissary approached Lux Prima, Elena stood again at the viewport. The planet below was unlike any human world. Its atmosphere scattered light in ways that created permanent aurora-like effects visible from space. Novan cities glittered like constellations against the planet's surface. The revelation of other intelligent species changed everything. Earth had been preparing for first contact, but not for entry into an established galactic community with its own politics and alliances. We need to proceed carefully, Admiral Cho said during their final briefing before planetfall. We're not just establishing relations with the Novans anymore. We're potentially announcing humanity's presence to an entire interstellar neighborhood. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. The Novans seem peaceful, but we don't know about these other species. Our actions here could determine humanity's place among the stars for generations to come. As the landing shuttle descended toward the Novan capital, Elena received an urgent message from the translation team. The light patterns from the planet had intensified, conveying something they hadn't seen before. It's a warning, she realized with sudden clarity. Something's wrong. The shuttle's communication system crackled to life with an emergency transmission from the emissary. Dr. Rice, aboard landing. We're detecting multiple unidentified vessels entering the system at high velocity. Through the shuttle window, Elena watched as streaks of light tore across Lux Prima's sky. Weapons fire. The peaceful first contact mission had just become complicated in ways no one had anticipated. Take us back to the emissary, she ordered, her mind racing. The Novans aren't the only ones who've been waiting for us to arrive. The misunderstanding. 3 months after the attack on Lux Prima, Elena found herself in the Crisis Command Center aboard the U.S. emissary, now joined by 4 additional Earth vessels that had arrived through the newly established jump point. The diplomatic mission had evolved into something far more complex. The Arcturians insist the Novans are developing a stellar inhibitor, Admiral Cho explained, gesturing to the holographic display showing a massive structure in Novan space. If activated, it could potentially destabilize every star within 50 light-years. Elena studied the images carefully. The structure didn't match anything in Novan architecture she had studied, yet it bore their distinctive crystalline patterns. Have we asked the Novans directly? She questioned. They deny it's a weapon, replied Ambassador Chen, who had arrived with the reinforcement ships. They claim it's a defensive shield, but they refuse to explain what it's defending against or how it works. The Arcturians have been trading with Earth outposts for the past year, added Security Chief Riggs. They've proven reliable allies. The Novans, for all their peaceful overtures, remain secretive. Elena felt caught between worlds. She had spent months building trust with the Novans, learning their light language and cultural nuances. Yet now humanity was being pulled into an interstellar conflict they barely understood. The Novans communicate differently, Elena insisted. Their concept of secrecy isn't the same as ours. Information isn't hidden. It's simply expressed in ways we might not recognize. Admiral Cho nodded thoughtfully. Which is why you're still our best asset, Doctor. I need you to meet with Lumina again. Get answers. The meeting took place on a neutral station at the edge of the Novan system. Alina had designed the chamber specifically for optimal light communication, with adjustable refraction panels and spectrum analyzers. When Lumina entered, Alina could immediately sense something different in the Novan's light patterns, frequencies that suggested distress or constraint. "We value our relationship with humans," Lumina's light patterns conveyed after formal greetings. "But there are matters beyond simple diplomacy now. The structure in your outer system," Alina replied through her light communication device. "The Arcturians believe it's a weapon." Lumina's body flashed with patterns Alina had never seen before, complex, rapid sequences that her translators couldn't fully process. "Not a weapon," came the eventual translation. "Protection. Necessity. The darkness approaches." "What darkness?" Alina pressed. "Lumina, Earth is being asked to take sides in a conflict we don't understand. I need more than vague warnings." The Novan's light dimmed momentarily, then intensified. "Some truths cannot be spoken or shown. They must be experienced. Will you trust enough to see?" Alina hesitated only briefly. "Yes." What followed was unlike anything in her training. Lumina extended a crystalline appendage, touching Alina's temple. Suddenly, her vision filled with images, not seen with her eyes, but somehow projected directly into her consciousness. She witnessed vast, empty regions of space where stars should be. Entire systems gone dark, planets frozen and lifeless. At the edge of these voids, shadowy entities moved, things with no definite form but undeniable presence, consuming light itself. When the vision ended, Alina found herself on her knees, gasping. The Void Eaters, Lumina's light pattern stated simply: ancient, patient, inevitable. They have consumed 17 systems in the past millennium, 3 civilizations extinct. They approach this region now. Alina's mind raced. The structure. It's not a stellar inhibitor. It's a barrier. Yes, it redirects light energy to create a shield against that which feeds on light. The Arcturians know this, but they fear our technology would make us dominant if alliance becomes necessary. Back aboard the emissary, Alina's report met with skepticism. "A convenient story," remarked Chief Riggs. "Invisible monsters that eat stars. It sounds like propaganda." "I saw it," Alina insisted, "or experienced it somehow. The Novans don't lie. Their communication doesn't allow for deception as we understand it." "The Arcturian fleet is mobilizing," interrupted Communications Officer Park. "They're demanding we take a position." Admiral Cho turned to Alina. "Can you prove any of this?" "No," Alina admitted. "But I can propose a test. If the structure is a weapon, it would have energy signatures consistent with offensive capabilities. If it's a shield, as the Novans claim, its energy would be configured differently. The Arcturians won't wait for scientific analysis," Ambassador Chen warned. "They're pushing for immediate action." Alina stood her ground. "Then humanity's first significant interstellar decision will be based on fear rather than facts." "Is that the precedent we want to set?" Her words hung in the air. Finally, Admiral Cho nodded. "You have 48 hours, Doctor. Find me proof one way or the other." Working with Science Officer Takeda, Alina reconfigured the emissary's sensors to detect specific light patterns that would indicate the structure's true purpose. Meanwhile, diplomatic tensions escalated. 2 additional species, the reptilian Draconis and the gaseous Nehibians, joined the Arcturians in their stance against the Novans. "They're scared," Alina realized. "All of them. Whether the Void Eaters are real or not, the power balance in this region is shifting." On the final day of her deadline, Alina's specialized sensors detected something unexpected: a repeating pattern of energy pulses from an uninhabited system 10 light-years away. "It's not random," she told Admiral Cho, pointing to the data. "This matches frequencies the Novans described in historical records of Void Eater activity." As they analyzed the signals, an emergency transmission came through. The Arcturian fleet had opened fire on the Novan structure. "We need to stop this," Alina urged. If that shield fails, and the Void Eaters are real, we have no proof they're real, Ambassador Chen interrupted. Elena turned to the display showing the distant energy pulses. Then what's causing that? Admiral, we need to investigate these signals before making any decisions. After a tense moment, Admiral Cho nodded. Prepare a scout ship, Dr. Rice. You'll lead the mission. As Elena's team prepared to depart, reports came in of Novan counterattacks against Arcturian positions. The regional conflict was escalating rapidly, with humanity caught in the middle. Be careful out there, Admiral Cho told Elena before she boarded the scout ship. Whatever you find could determine not just Earth's first interstellar alliance, but potentially the survival of multiple civilizations. The scout ship jumped to the coordinates of the mysterious signals. What they found confirmed Elena's worst fears, a region of space where light itself seemed to bend unnaturally, stars visibly dimming as they watched. It's them, whispered Science Officer Takeda. The Void Eaters. As they recorded the phenomenon, their sensors detected a massive surge in the energy readings. The darkness was spreading, accelerating. They're coming, Elena realized. And we've just helped start a war between the only civilizations that might stand against them. The Alliance. The scout ship raced back toward Novan space, its engines pushed beyond safety parameters. Elena sat in the command chair, watching the countdown to system re-entry with growing anxiety. Prepare the full sensor package for immediate transmission to the emissary, she ordered. Every fragment of data on the Void Eaters needs to reach Admiral Cho before we arrive. Transmission ready, replied Science Officer Takeda. But there's a problem. Long-range scans show the battle has intensified. The jump point is in the middle of an active combat zone. Elena clenched her jaw. Send it now, while we still can. Wide-spectrum broadcast. As the data burst transmitted, the scout ship dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Novan system. The scene before them was chaos. Arcturian battleships exchanging fire with Novan vessels, while Earth ships maintained a defensive perimeter around the emissary. This is Dr. Rice to all vessels. Elena broadcast on all frequencies. Ceasefire immediately. We have confirmed the existence of the Void Eaters. They are approaching this sector. The Novan structure is our only defense. Silence greeted her transmission. Then suddenly, the scout ship shuddered as a tractor beam locked onto them. Arcturian cruiser has us, reported the pilot. They're pulling us in. Elena wasn't surprised. The Arcturians had the most to lose if her findings were verified. They had initiated this conflict based on either a fundamental misunderstanding or deliberate deception. Once aboard the Arcturian vessel, Elena was brought before Commander Thrix, an imposing figure with iridescent scales and 6 limbs that moved with unsettling precision. Your interference is unwelcome, human, Thrix stated, mandibles clicking. This conflict predates your species' emergence from your home system. Then you know about the Void Eaters, Elena replied calmly. You know the Novan shield is our only protection. Thrix's yellow eyes narrowed. The Void Eaters are a Novan myth, created to justify their military expansion. We have existed in this sector for millennia and have never encountered such entities. Then explain this, Elena challenged, retrieving a data crystal from her uniform. Our readings from the outer system. The light distortion patterns match exactly with Novan historical records. Fabrications. Thrix dismissed. The Novans manipulate light itself. Creating false readings would be trivial for them. Elena changed tactics. Commander, regardless of your history with the Novans, Earth has no stake in your past conflicts. We can be objective. Let me present our findings to all species involved, in a neutral forum. After tense negotiations, Thrix agreed, not out of trust, but calculation. If humans sided fully with the Novans, it would shift the power balance significantly. The forum was hastily arranged on the emissary. Representatives from all involved species gathered. Arcturians, Novans, Draconis, Nahabians, and humans. Elena presented the scout ship's findings, including time-lapse imagery showing the progressive dimming of stars in the affected region. "The phenomenon is accelerating," she concluded. "At current rates, it will reach this system within 60 days. Arcturian scientists challenged her data but couldn't explain the observed stellar dimming. The Draconis, pragmatic by nature, were the first to waver. "If there is even a possibility this threat is real," spoke their representative, "continuing our conflict is illogical." The debate raged for hours. Finally, Lumina requested permission to address the gathering directly. The Novan approached the center of the chamber, body glowing with complex patterns that Elena recognized as their most formal communication mode. "For too long, we have hidden knowledge out of fear," Lumina's translated light pattern stated. "The Void Eaters destroyed our original home system. Our ancestors fled, carrying warnings that few believed. We built our shield in secret because previous attempts at alliance failed." Lumina's body then projected images, historical records of previous encounters with the Void Eaters, civilizations lost, and early failed attempts at defensive technology. "Our shield alone cannot stop them," Lumina continued. "It was designed as part of a network that requires all our technologies working in concert." Elena watched understanding dawn across the gathered representatives. The Novan shield was never meant to be a solitary defense, but one component of a system that required cooperation from all regional species. Admiral Cho stepped forward. "As newcomers to this region of space, Earth has no historical grievances to overcome. We offer to coordinate this alliance, not as leaders, but as mediators." The room fell silent. Then, remarkably, Commander Thrix of the Arcturians rose. "The Arcturian hegemony has survived by anticipating threats," Thrix stated. "If we have miscalculated in this instance, adaptation is necessary for survival." It was far from enthusiastic support, but it was a beginning. Over the following days, a fragile alliance formed. Each species contributed unique technologies: Arcturian energy weapons, Draconian gravity manipulators, Nahabian atmospheric processors, and Earth's advanced computational systems, all integrated with the Novan light manipulation shield. Elena found herself in the unexpected role of chief diplomat, shuttling between species to resolve technical and cultural conflicts as they arose. "You've become a true ambassador," Admiral Cho remarked one evening as they reviewed progress reports. Elena shook her head. "I'm just a linguist who learned that communication goes beyond words or even light patterns. Understanding transcends language." As the Void Eaters approached, the Alliance completed its defensive network. The shield, now expanded and enhanced by multiple technologies, encircled the entire star system. On the day of projected contact, representatives from all 5 species gathered on the observatory deck of the emissary. The viewports had been specially modified to safely observe the phenomenon. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, at the outer edge of the system, stars began to waver, their light bending unnaturally. Darkness spread like ink through water, not an absence of light, but something actively consuming it. The shield activated, its crystalline nodes pulsing with energy. Where the darkness touched the shield, brilliant cascades of light erupted, pushing back the void. For hours, the battle between light and dark continued at the boundary. "The shield is holding," reported Science Officer Takeda, "but power levels are fluctuating." Elena turned to Lumina, whose light pattern showed clear distress. "What's happening?" "The Eaters are more numerous than anticipated," the Novan replied. "The shield requires additional energy to sustain itself." Without hesitation, Admiral Cho made a decision that would define humanity's place in interstellar relations for generations to come. "Divert all power from Earth vessels to the shield," she ordered, "including life support reserves. Keep only minimal emergency systems online." Other species followed suit, sacrificing their own resources. As ship after ship went dark, the shield strengthened, pushing the Void Eaters back. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the darkness retreated, slipping away toward distant stars. The celebration that followed transcended species boundaries. Ancient enemies embraced new alliances forged in shared survival. Treaties were drafted, technology exchanges initiated, and permanent diplomatic channels established. 6 months later, Elena stood in a newly constructed chamber on Lux Prima. Representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations had gathered for the formal establishment of the Interstellar Cooperative. As Earth's official ambassador, Elena addressed the gathering. Our differences, biological, cultural, historical, once seemed insurmountable, but we've discovered something greater than those differences: our shared determination to exist, to preserve light against darkness, to build rather than destroy. She gestured to the memorial that dominated the chamber's center, a crystalline structure that captured and refracted light from all 17 homeworlds. This cooperative isn't just about defense against external threats. It's about recognizing that diversity creates resilience. Each of our species perceives the universe differently, and in sharing those perceptions, we all see more clearly. As Elena concluded her address, Lumina approached her. The Novan's light patterns had changed subtly over the months, adopting elements of human communication styles, just as Elena had incorporated Novan patterns into her own expressions. The darkness will return, Lumina's lights conveyed privately, perhaps not for centuries, but it will come again. Elena nodded. And we'll be ready, not as separate civilizations, but as something new, something stronger. Outside the chamber's windows, construction vessels from multiple species worked together, expanding the shield network to protect not just one system, but an entire sector. In the distance, Earth's newest vessel, the Ambassador-class U.S. Cooperation, prepared for its maiden voyage, its mission to extend alliance invitations to civilizations in neighboring sectors.